Yeah, hello, good evening, and welcome to the Majority Show. Back at our regular time of, it's supposed to be at 7 o'clock, but it's on a Wednesday now. But unfortunately, we had some technical difficulties this evening, and we've been trying to sort those out. So please, thank you for staying with us, and we hope we're going to have a great show tonight. I'm here today with David and Niall, and what we're going to be talking about today.
Well, tonight I will be asking, does censorship kill freedom of speech?
And I'll be talking about the SNP economic advisor that can't find the positive economic case for separation. Go figure, guys.
Yes, and myself and David and I will all be talking about the abuse that nationalists have been giving to BBC journalists and us all. So please come back in just a second. Well, we forgot that little bit there about the Zoomer of the Week, which, of course, we will have at the end of the show. As you may have noticed, the show is now a show. It's all press the wrong button. Show is now a show and not a podcast. We had some people weren't too sure what a podcast was, so we decided to make it into a show. And we will be the same, generally same format. You can bring in your comments, Niall.
Of course, guys. Please do donate if you haven't already. I see there's comments filtering in already. Sorry for the late start as well. But really, every donation does equip us to attack the nationalists. And that is what you want from us to attack the nationalists. So if you could give as much as you possibly can. And if you can't, you can always leave a non-monetary share or comment or whatever you want. Just get our show out there.
Right. David, what else we got to say?
Well, as always, guys, we'd like to thank our friends at UK Union Voice and at United Against Separation for supporting the show by letting us broadcast directly to their Facebook pages from where I know many of you are watching. And additionally, of course, guys, you can watch the show on YouTube from where you can subscribe and get alerts, which means you will never have to miss the show. So subscribe now.
Please do like, share, comment, tell your friends. Extend the reach at the click of a button. Good comments get read in the show, but please do keep them short and we'll show them on screen. We'll try to get as many in as we can.
Right. So thank you for all that. So we will be talking about, Niall was going to be talking about the SNP economic advisor can't make a positive case for the SNP. And David's going to be talking about the impact of censorship on free speech, which of course is something that is very important to us all. But before that, we're going to be talking about abuse by Scottish nationalists. So we'll have a bit of a discussion. We hope that you can bring in plenty of your chats into this as well. Be back in a second. Right, I think David's going to lead off with this, and then we'll all join in at different points.
Sure. I'll talk about the very disturbing incident that took place at the Edinburgh Fringe this week, in the last week, I should say. You will all, I'm sure, be aware of the well-known Scottish comedian, American-born Scottish comedian, in fact, Jerry Sadowicz. Jerry Sadowicz had a planned Edinburgh Fringe show cancelled by venue bosses after just one performance. And event organisers claimed that they had received, after this performance, an unprecedented amount of complaints. Organisers went on to claim that the reason for the cancellation was extreme racism and misogyny in the first show, and they further claimed that a large number of people had walked out of the show as they felt it both uncomfortable and unsafe in the venue. So goodness knows what poor Jerry was doing. But we all know Jerry Sadowicz. He is a shock jock type comedian, deliberately shocking, unashamedly shocking, very, very blatantly shocking comedian. You don't go to a Jerry Sadowicz show to hear Jimmy Tarbuck jokes, guys. That just doesn't happen. So event organisers went on to claim in mitigation of their actions that while the Fringe champions free speech and does not censor performers, nonetheless, Sadowicz's show has no place at the festival. What do you think of that then, gentlemen?
I thought it was hilarious. It's uncomfortable and unsafe to remain in the venue. What the heck? That's just patently untrue, of course. I mean, what are the words going to come to life and start doing real damage to them? No. So, I mean, extreme racism and extreme misogyny as well. I wonder what joke that was. I'll need to hear it.
Have you guys actually been to? Have you actually been to a Sadowicz performance?
Never been.
Performance. I mean, he is absolutely near the knuckle, but I mean, I certainly didn't feel unsafe. That's for sure. So, uncomfortable.
Well, I noticed it's very difficult to get a hold of any of his material on the web. He is very, very, very conscientious, I think, about getting rid of it anyway. I think, this is the thing. We're seeing more and more of this type of cancel culture. And I think we have it comes from the government down as well, right? We have this hate crime law, which we all know about. It's still going through this. Was it actually put into law? David,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, the hate crimes bill is in law now. Yeah, the one that was scrapped was the Offensive Behaviour at Football Act. That was scrapped. But the hate crimes bill is actually law now. Yeah, and I think, in fact, the Scottish Labour Party, voted it through, as did the Scottish Lib Dems. So it very much is in law now. Yeah.
Yes. So, I mean, there's just this, I think this general censorious type attitude we see from people. And I think I have a bit more nuanced view on people cancelling stuff. If people want to cancel stuff and protest, whatever side of the aisle you're on, you can do that. I think it's generally, we like to say that things that, it's people on the left are trying to cancel people because of certain things. But, on our side, we try to cancel, Janie Godley and so on for not offensive comedy. Offensive comedy is something that, people you can take, give or take, but for offensive tweets and behaviour outside of the performances. Yeah, and as we know, that was she was rehabilitated by the Times and other newspapers who basically, wanted her to continue despite having a huge history of offensive tweets. So. So that I think there is a bit of. I think it's fine to try and cancel people. Actually, I think that's all right. I think that's a free speech issue, actually. But I think in something like this case, where they've already decided that they're going to have this performer on, so they know who he is, and they also have an audience who knows who he is. Then why not? Why do you suddenly come up at the end and go, "Oh well, actually, we don't really like this"? I mean, it seems
absolutely
good.
It seems ludicrous. I mean, if you don't want to feel uncomfortable and unsafe or offended at a comedian's material, can I suggest you don't voluntarily book a ticket to go and see Jerry Sadowicz? That would seem to me to be the way through this morass, guys. So anyway, but even more, not even more disturbing, but almost typically, if you like, the Nine, the Scottish BBC Scotland, I should say, flagship evening news broadcast last night contained an interview with a gentleman named Constantine Kissin, who has spoken out in support of Sadowicz, and rightly so, in my view. He was interviewed by Martin Geisler, and you'll know Martin Geisler, in my opinion of him. I think he's an extraordinarily poor journalist who's extremely weak at standing up to the nonsense that's going on in Scotland right now. But Geisler, in his interview, took it upon himself to point out that he himself had actually been at a Sadowicz show a couple of years ago, and Geisler claimed that he found it quite troubling in that Geisler, sensed that quite a lot of people in the audience were there so they could laugh at racism, as they didn't get the chance to do so very often.
Yeah, I actually have the clip. I've got a clip here. If you just give me a second to bring it up, I can It starts about halfway through. So
going to a Jerry Sadowicz show and being offended is like a vegan going to a steak restaurant and being horrified that there's dead animals on the table.
Brilliant.
It's ridiculous.
I'm just going to pause it there and move it forward to the end, though, where he talks about this. Guys, so hopefully I can get you to the right position.
The thing that I found actually quite troubling that night was I sensed that quite a lot of people in the audience were there so they could laugh at a bit of racism because they don't get the chance all that often. Does that trouble you?
If I were a mind reader like you, it would trouble me. I have no idea why the people were enjoying his show. I have more faith in human beings than perhaps you do. I believe that people are able to understand irony and very clever comedy that Jerry Sadowitz does.
Well, as you correctly point out, I was there, you weren't. I was watching what was going on around me and trying to assess who thought what about it. But listen, it was fascinating
and
to hear.
How did you assess that? Sorry.
Well, just by judging, by watching people watching their body language and listening to them around the venue.
You can tell what someone thinks.
No,
from
I'm
their
not.
body
I'm not saying I knew what they were
impressive.
thinking. I'm just saying it struck me that might have been the case.
No, you did say you knew what they were thinking.
No,
you said exactly that. You said that you knew that
I said I was concerned they might have been. But listen, we are out of time, and it's been fascinating to hear your opinions this evening. Constantine, thank you very much indeed
for
being with us this evening.
Going to Jerry.
He didn't mean that last bit where he said thanks for being with you.
It was quite something, that one, wasn't it?
What an interview. So, I mean, leaving aside the fact that the normally wretched Geisler was cowardly, as always, and kicking a man when he's down, Sadowicz, I'm really, really concerned about this because we're witnessing very clearly censorship of comedy. Now, earlier on in Constantine's interview there, he mentioned that the TV show Mock the Week has been cancelled. It's not being renewed. There are rumours that Live at the Apollo is also going to be banned. Now, my question is, are we beginning to see the end of stand-up comedy here, guys?
Yeah, of course.
On the grounds that some people somewhere find it offensive. So if one person finds it offensive, is that enough to cancel it? I mean, for goodness sake.
Well, I guess it's just going to move on to YouTube, really, or that type of thing. Paid YouTubes, because basically you can laugh at it in your home. There'll be no crowd thing at all for that. As you know, you don't want to be sitting next to someone whose body language is racist. You know, I mean,
it was clear to me that as soon as the hate crime law went through, the Edinburgh Fringe would effectively cease to exist. Yeah. I mean, it's existed. It's on like a life saving machine. It's on. It's all wired up, but it won't last very long, especially when you've got comedians like this, Sadowicz, being cancelled. I mean, it used to be the place you could come, say what you want, practice your act, go on with your day, and go back to wherever it was from the world.
Well, they're doing this. What they've tried to do is they've tried to get around this. I've noticed this quite a bit in comedians. Frankie Boyle's doing it. I think Sadowicz has been doing it for a bit. And the recent thing with what's the guy from The Office? What's his name? Ricky Gervais did it as well. They kind of say this could be a joke, right? It's not, and they try and do straddle both lines instead of just trying to make the audience uncomfortable with a type of joke that they would, is on the edge, right? And then making a point of that. Yes, we're so clever because we can make you uncomfortable about these social norms and so on. But it's a kind of defensive strategy, I think, in some way. And I'm not really making this joke. I'm just making this joke to make a point. Make a bigger point. And I think that can only go so far, really. Yeah. I think it will have to end up, you either have to sign a waiver, maybe to go into the show or whatever it is. But I think the comes down to, I mean, who was actually against this?
I mean, do you go to a Fringe event and expect government mandated jokes? Is this where we're going? This joke's approved for your viewing pleasure. You're allowed to listen to this, but certain things are not allowed. Things that are that people just automatically find funny are not allowed. It's just obscene.
It is. Certainly, everyone knows that Sadowicz's history for such a long time. So, why now? I don't particularly care to go and see that. I've heard some clips. Some of the jokes are great, but it's not really my thing. But it's other people's thing. Let them just get on with it. That's what we say.
Absolutely right.
Live and let live. Speak and let speak, as it were.
Indeed. But the last thing I'd say in this, and I say this for a reason, we've seen the offensive behaviour at football, which we talked about, which is where the government genuinely tried to criminalise 19-year-old boys for singing songs on the way to football grounds. I mean, utter insanity. Even the utterly unworthy of their place Scottish opposition MSPs managed to come together to vote that out of law, thank God. But what next? So seriously, if we're going to ban comedy, what's next? Football? Dancing? I mean, what? I say this because I'm a huge fan of the genuinely great Lenny Bruce, the father of modern comedy, who only, 55 years ago was hounded quite literally to his death. He was unable to work because he was banned from appearing in public because he used words like cocksucker, pardon my French. It was that type of...
Family show.
Not a family show, exactly. But it was a word like that. He was literally arrested for using that particular word. That's how ridiculous it is. And as a result of that, the man wasn't able to work and he ended up dead of a heroin overdose. Dreadful thing. Now,
I don't think people have that much pity, though, really, to be honest, for comedians, especially Jerry Sadowicz and stuff. They can give it out plenty as they take. I think as a society we need to be able to say, look, these people like this thing, and it's not offend. It's offend.
Well, the thing is,
it's not.
The role of the court jester has been there for all humanity, basically.
Absolutely,
I mean, we need comedy to sort of to pacify and to calm everybody down.
Because and sometimes it has to be on the edge. It's like people. Is it too soon to make a joke about 9/11 or something of that type of thing? And at a certain point, maybe it's for some people it will never be too long, as it were.
Yep.
But
absolutely. I mean, there is a debate about leading edge comedy, if you like. People will say, well, is it acceptable to make jokes about babies dying of cancer and that sort of stuff? Okay, if you want to be really take offensiveness to the absolute limit, you can make a point about that. But this isn't what we're talking about. We're just talking about a guy who goes to a fringe festival where he's well known for telling dirty jokes, and he tells some dirty jokes. Shock horror, oh my God, let's ban him. Ridiculous. So to me, it's the thin end of the wedge, and I think it's just something we should all avoid. Surely we have a right to free speech. If that means having the right to offend people, well, so be it. Even the US Senate agreed that Larry Flint, the pornographer, had the right to offend people with the stuff that he said. That's what the movie The People versus Larry Flint was about. And the Supreme Court in the US, to their great credit, sided with him and said he could make a joke about...
Well, they have a First Amendment, so that helps.
Exactly. But, he had made a joke about a TV evangelist having sex with his mother and all this stuff. And even the Supreme Court in the US said, no, that's fair enough. It was clearly a joke. So we've really surely got to be a little bit more tolerant. That's all I would say, guys. So, and I think the reason I say this is because we're up against this woke-ism in this country pushed by the SNP and Greens, and I think it is down to people like us to push back against it whenever we can. So that would be
these woke people literally think that words can do harm. They've never been told the sticks and stones nursery rhyme.
Well, I think
when they were kids.
Yeah,
never.
I think that it's a way for them to get power because they can say, "Don't use that word. We'll police your word. You police your language." And it's one way that people can get power. And the way to get away from that, of course, is to say, no, you can say whatever you like, irrespective of that. Talking of offensive people, in the next segment, we will be talking about a bunch of hateful people shouting scum and Tory scum and so on at the hustings last night in Perth. We will be back in a second. Right, I guess I'm going to lead in this one then. Yesterday there was a Tory leadership event. Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak came up to Perth to debate the issues. Was there any highlights really from the event? Before we go on to the thing, was there anything interesting in the event itself? I think Liz Truss reaffirmed that she was not going to give a second referendum to nationalists, right? She basically said that a generation hasn't passed. And while we may disagree that a generation is even too short, then still we're beginning to get a bit more of a firm line in the sand, not even a line in the sand, a brick wall built on the beachhead to stop a nationalist trying to get a referendum. Any comments on, and Sunak, I think, as well, basically just said, we'll give him more money.
Yeah, that's pretty much what he did say. The Chancellor with the open checkbook, exactly, yeah. I mean, Yeah, I thought it was notable that they went to Scotland last night. They knew what kind of reception they were likely to get from the cybernats, but even so, the extent of the opprobrium, if you like, with which they were faced was quite, or which we were met, I should say, was quite something. It was
It's
very
quite shocking, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. They went to Northern Ireland today also, and I think this is terrific. That's exactly what they should be doing. They should be going out to all the regions of the UK. This should not be seen as a London-centric or an England-centric discussion. The new PM will be the PM of all of the UK, and so they're quite right to go there. And it was very notable that the nationalists in Scotland, the separatists, could not stand the idea that English, southern, privileged Tories had come to Scotland, and you saw how they reacted, and that's exactly what we should be fighting against.
Well, I'm not sure that Liz Truss is particularly privileged. She lives in a £250,000 house.
Wow.
And so
no, it's the brand because she's associated with the Tory brand. That's
I think that's the point. Well, we had it's quite a bit of abuse. This is from Daily Mail. Outrageous finger-jabbing Scottish nationalist yell, scum, traitor, and liar at BBC Scotland editor James Cook in angry confrontation but bias. Now I have the video somewhere here, so let's have a wee look and see if I can bring it up. Here's James Cook. Here we go, and let's see how this goes.
I've come here to do this. We've filmed it. We've put it on the television already. It's already been on the 6 o'clock news. We're here again. I've actually had my phone out.
We've seen your Taliban report.
If you let me finish this sentence. I had my phone out actually to get a good shot of everybody and show what everyone was doing when the gentleman called me scum. So, who's the person who's been unreasonable here?
You then beat the deal.
About the claimant rights.
Claimant right nutters.
Can I ask a question?
You're a traitor.
Can I ask a question, please? Can I ask a question? Can I ask a question? Let me ask a question.
Sure, yes.
So you're part of the BBC, yes?
Yes, that's right.
Do you know about the claimant rights 1689?
I know about the
Yes,
claimant right.
yes.
Yes, I'm aware of it.
Well, we
When
get-
it's 60, yes.
1689. So how
Patience
long
of a
have you been in
saint here.
Scotland?
I've been in Scotland my whole life.
Have you?
I'm not going to be starting asking you how long you've been in Scotland. I think it's a bit of a rude question,
Is
but
it?
nonetheless.
No,
okay,
because
fair
if you,
enough.
you didn't know very well much about the claimant right.
I know,
You know.
I know my
So do you know?
history. I know my history.
So you do. Are we going to get? No, let me finish. Do you have fear reporting on the claimant rights? Will you report?
Right, well, you get the
I know.
idea, I guess.
Jeez.
So.
How toxic and how horrible was that, ladies and gentlemen? Just how horrible was that? Just take a moment to reflect just on where we are.
Don't you think it's notable that somebody's just made the point, Tommy Boy? It's the Snats who put the video out. It wasn't the BBC.
Of
who
course.
Put the video out.
Yeah, it was very notable. Like they were something they were proud of. Actually, they're like, here we are. We're giving it to this BBC guy, and I think most decent people would think that he handled that very well. I know that if they were calling me a traitor and stuff like that, would perhaps set off some anger vibes. But he was extremely calm and very professional. I think in the face of that, you get called in that. He said he'd been called scum. He was called traitor. He had clearly, and he was basically asked if he even came from Scotland.
Yeah,
I mean, what kind of thing is that?
Yeah. Well, it goes back to remember the Sarah Smith story. Just
Yes.
a few months ago, she had to leave her position and left to a less toxic environment, which was American politics, if you can believe that, guys.
Yes.
So clearly, the BBC are onto something, and the rest of us individuals were onto something and saying that the bile has just reached critical mass at this point. The toxicity is beyond the scale. We've broke all our records of toxicity, and I don't think there is ever a return. It's just going to get more cemented, more polarised, and the centre won't hold much longer, guys.
Well, I don't think there's. Yeah, I see what you're saying about the centre. People are becoming certainly more extreme. But I mean, we talked about this a little bit. The polls seem to indicate that nationalists are a little bit softer in their view than people who want to maintain the UK, in the sense of that how they would vote. But the nationalists, of course, are much more vocal in how they present their case, as it were. So we have the cybernat as an issue. And I think we'll come on to this a little bit later in the show. We'll talk about some of the other stuff. But there's this idea that this is abuse. I mean, I'll play this clip from Nicola Sturgeon, and she basically says that this abuse is nothing to do with her, and that it's the other side is just as bad. So let's play it first and see where we're at.
I will condemn any abusive behaviour. I'm not responsible for it. I wasn't in Perth last night. It wasn't
me
in my name.
Yep.
As far as I'm aware, it wasn't SNP members doing that. If SNP members behave in that way, appropriate action will be taken. So I will always call out that behaviour, and I don't, sort of do that in any way grudgingly. I want to live in a democracy where we can have these debates and settle them democratically, rather than be denied the opportunity to settle them democratically. And I hope leaders in other parties will be equally quick to call out abuse when it is directed at people like me or my colleagues in the SNP or the independence movement. All politicians who care about democracy should call out this behaviour, whether it's on their side or on the other side. It's very easy to call out behaviour like this when it's your opponents that you're calling out. It's harder to do when it's people professing to be on your own side. And
I have to stop this, for God's sake.
I know, it's so really bad.
Exactly.
It's absolutely shocking. And it's not like, yes, there are people in our movement who are toxic. This is the thing, right? Yeah. And they're toxic in their own right. So, and we need to get rid of these because we can't form proper progressive Scotland or whatever it is. That's what she wants to say. No, it wasn't us, and everyone else is to blame.
Yep.
It's absolutely shocking.
She's been the ringleader, the lion tamer of nationalism for the last, 9 years? Come on, guys. It's her rhetoric, and it's her message, and it's her vision that these supporters are pushing.
That's
right. And it's not only that, Niall. She is responsible for the climate in which all of Scottish public discourse takes place. And that's why one gentleman here, a listener, viewer, Bongo Fury 54 asked if the first segment had anything to do with the fight against nationalism. Absolutely it does, because the first segment was wrapped up by saying that it's the woke culture that we see pushed by the SNP and by the Greens, and stuff like banning comedians is simply a first step in that. As I mentioned, it's all about how previously football fans were criminalised for singing songs. Words can hurt. Yes, they can. That's absolutely right. That doesn't mean people should be denied the right to work, though. And that's what's happening in this culture. And that's why we mention it, because it's only, you'd never have seen a comedian banned from the Edinburgh Fringe had the SNP and Greens not been in government. Not a single
never
chance.
Never enough. Monthly Sundays.
That's why we raise it. And these things all contribute to the climate we see in the UK today, and particularly in Scotland, for which, as Niall says, rightly, Nicola Sturgeon is directly responsible, and she can stand there blinking and giggling and say, it's nothing to do with me. It's entirely to do with her. We know it is.
Yes, it is. I mean, basically, she had the chance.
Yep.
After they lost in 2014, she had the chance to say, look, this is a very divisive referendum campaign. We need a period of healing here. We need to go to the reconciliation service, which they didn't. We need to, not just that, but we need to make policies reach across the different parties and say, can we do things? What can we actually do? No. All they did was they did the exact opposite. They basically went full on. We're going to get another referendum. We're going to go against the majority of what the majority of Scots want. We're going to keep pushing this and pushing this. We're going to sell this dream to our followers of this lie to our followers, to the point where they say, and we're going to tell them that Westminster is denying them, right? The English Tories are denying them a referendum. So it's how surprising is it when there's a hustling with Tories coming up from England that they go out and shout and say, you're denying us this and you're doing that and you're scum for all that. And it's a lie, because the people who are denying Nicola Sturgeon's referendum are the majority of Scots who voted to remain in the UK. That's the people. That's the reality of the situation. And she has ignored them, and she's put this. She's basically deflected off to it's Westminster that's stopping it. It's not actual other Scots. And I mean that they're free to attack other Scots as well. Yep. I'll put this thing here. This is a Twitter poll we put up about, I don't know, let's see, 3:34. So a few hours ago. Here on Twitter in real life, have you ever been called a traitor, told to go live in England, called scum, or being given other abuse by Scottish nationalists?
Yeah, I'll put my hand up for that one as well. Yeah.
494 votes so far. 83% have been abused in some way. 83%. Here we go.
Well,
repeatedly online and in person many times. I'm half English. At work during the 2014 campaign, dogs abuse. My mother was 80. Blah blah blah. It goes on and on and on and on. You know.
I'll put it to you, gentlemen. Has the support for the Yes campaign been surpassed for hatred of the Tories at this point? Is this where we are, where the hatred of the Tories trumps the independence campaign? Is this what it's fueled on now, guys? Pure hatred and anger. Is this where we are?
I think that.
Well, some guy said to me yesterday, I think on Twitter, and he's like, the Tories are terrible and evil and all this type of nonsense.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, vote for Labour then. Because, why are you voting for a party that can't get independence away from the Tories and can't form a UK government? You're wasting your vote. If you want to get rid of the Tories, and it's fair enough in a democracy, and I think we all believe in losers' consent, if the people vote for Labour, whatever, right? That's fine. But this idea that it's everyone against them as a Tory and all those Tories are scum, it goes through their whole party. You had Robertson. Blackford, right, saying that thing to the guy, the English photographer coming up, and there was all those people, Iona Fife and all those type of people who are saying stuff like, well, it's okay, Eurovision, we hate England, or we hate the UK too, which basically is the same thing. And all this type of stuff, it just goes endemic in their party.
The push for the Scottish identity as well. You mentioned Iona Fife and the Billy Kays of the world. It all feeds into the same message. It's nationalism incarnate, guy. This is what it results in. It results in an atmosphere where there is no talk, like James Cook or the BBC journalist just there. You're getting abused, and the Nationals are putting this out as if it's something to be proud of, guys. It's
absolutely. Agreed.
It leaves you flabbergasted sometimes.
You asked a really pertinent question there now. Has the hatred of Tories taken over from maybe even the push for independence? I was in a pub on Sunday. I was in a couple of pubs actually on Sunday. But early on, I was in a boozer. I was watching a football match. And somebody in the pub used the term as an insult. There's that effing Tory. That's who he was referring to somebody. You know who he was referring to? Kyle Lafferty, the Northern Irish footballer who's played for Kilmarnock. And he called him a Tory. How has Kyle Lafferty got anything to do with the Conservative and Unionist Party? But that's it, because he's seen as a Unionist icon, presumably because he comes from Northern Ireland. He is from presumably a Unionist background, and he played for Rangers. Therefore, he's a Tory. And I just think this is just ridiculous. They're using this term pejoratively to mean any enemy of the Scottish nationalist separatist movement. That's what they're doing, and it's just.
And we'll come on to that, I think, a little bit.
A profound point as well made by Heavenly Malbec. Let's not forget red Tories. So it does not end with just the Tories, guys. There's different brands. There's the red ones. There's the other ones. There's the yellow Tories. So anyone they dislike, the Tory label is automatically applied.
Absolutely.
Do you understand the concept, guys? Oh, we don't like that. Tory.
We'll come on to that a little bit later, but we're going to talk about I'm calling them British nationalists. And you're like, well, wait a minute. Are all those people who Labour voters who voted to remain in the UK not somehow nationalists? How did that happen? I know. Yeah. And all those Lib Dems, they've become nationalists. It's nonsense. It's been a kind of. I mean, this might be the peak. I don't know if this is the peak of it, but this is a peak event to some extent where people see that there is this Tory hatred going on, that it's excessive. You have the Tory scum out banner with the imprint of the fascist Gaelic group, whatever. And, this kind of thing it's not even normalised in the SNP. As you pointed out earlier, they wanted to push that out and say, this is what we're doing. Isn't this great? Isn't this great how we're calling this guy a traitor? Isn't it great how we're calling him questioning his ethnicity, right?
maybe this is the point where we play Nicola Sturgeon's speech in George Square, where she drums it up. She reinforces this message, guys.
Yeah,
it's red meat to her supporters, and once you see it, you'll understand where all this rhetoric and where this toxicity has
100%
come from, guys.
The Scotland we seek is open, welcoming, diverse and inclusive, and no Tory is ever going to be allowed to change that.
No Tory! There you go. Anyone else can, but
it could be a red one, could be a normal Tory, you know.
We're really inclusive, except if you're a Tory, you can F off.
Yeah,
right?
But
and also, if you're Labour...
We're open and inclusive with our face.
And if you're Labour, you can F off too because you're just a Tory. And if you're Lib Dem, you can F off too because you're a Tory as well. It's like everyone's a Tory. Everyone around you is not part of your in-group. Therefore, they have to be othered, diminished, painted as the enemy. And that's fundamental of nationalism. Nationalism doesn't actually, I don't think, stop at the border.
No chance.
Right? Yeah, so if they had an independent Scotland, what would happen? Immediately, they would be pushing against all the people who didn't vote for them, right? Yeah. And and then they would be pushing inside themselves and so on, because the whole thing is based on deflection and othering. Just as Nicola Sturgeon was talking there, nationalism is deflection. It's never their fault, and other people are just as bad, but never no self-reflection at all.
Indeed, quite right. Well said.
Yeah. Thanks, David. Coming up, going to wee section on this economic economic who is being not economic with the truth, actually putting some truth out instead. Now I was going to be dealing with that. And then after that, it's going to be the highlight of the week, which is Zoomer of the Week. We've got some great candidates for you this week. If you haven't donated to the podcast before, please do so. Your donations power us, make us stronger, make your voice stronger. All of that's great stuff. It's coming up in a second.
Rightio.
We got this guy.
So, Mark Blythe, yes, the SNP's Indie Economic Advisor. He can't make the positive case for Indie. Go figure, guys. So, it'll come as no surprise to our listeners or Mark or David that the economic argument for separating from the rest of the UK is effectively non-existent. There is no argument. There never has been an argument on the positives of the Scottish economy post-separation, because there is no positives. So, here we have Mark Blythe. If you could bring up the tweet I sent you, Mark.
I don't have the tweet, but I have an article here. Six poster boy axed from economic group after struggling to find a positive case for independence.
Yes.
Oh, brilliant.
So if you read his tweet, which is actually hilarious, he says that since this gentleman, David McWilliams, made him, Mark Blythe, the unintentional poster boy of Scottish economics. And he does, reluctant. So he rose to prominence a few months back as well, guys. He was on the show. He was one of the Zoomers of the week, I believe, I remember. When he was hypothesising about what we can do in an independent Scotland to shore up the economy, he come up with the genius idea, guys, of mortgaging Scotland off to the Chinese.
Yeah, I think we've got that clip right here.
Literally the stuff of nightmares, gentlemen.
And you don't see a role for others. I wouldn't accept Russian rubles, but what about the Chinese? If they said, we were very much like a naval base in the North Atlantic.
Well, not even the naval base. I mean, basically, if you just went to them into the Belt and Road Initiative and the Asian Development Bank and said, all right, really, two small cities that have already got pretty good communications infrastructure, how about you build the 5G? Well, that's Huawei, so that's a security risk for everybody in the West, right? But you could do that. How about you rebuild our port infrastructure for us and you give us a big loan to do it? To do that is a rounding error on their balance sheet. It's a tiny amount of money. And it gets them right into a strategic position. So you could use the threat of doing that as a way of getting what you want. Right. Alternatively, you could just go to them and say, well, how about we just do this with China because you don't want to play ball? The point is Scotland has options that people don't think about. The question is whether they have, if you will, the wherewithal or desire to follow through on those options.
Yeah, I mean, basically what he's talking about there is...
maniacal.
It's absolutely nuts. It's the kind of, it's like we will threaten the UK and the West,
Yes.
you know, with the idea that we will put a Chinese naval base in Scotland so that we can get what we want.
Well, not
You know,
only that, it was the Huawei as well. We know Huawei was, what was it, banned from Westminster at one point because of the potential for leaked information. So, I mean, he was also using it, I mean, they're using it as a wedge against the West. What, we're breaking up the UK in order to destroy the West? Is that what Mark's plan is? And we'll use the Chinese money in order to do it, and we'll use the force of the Chinese. This is literally the stuff of nightmares, guys. Let's mortgage Scotland off to the Chinese Communist Party and the regime. Great idea, guys.
Well, it's like they're so smug about it as well. So, you know, here's a great idea I've got. Yeah, well, we'll just prostitute ourselves to the Chinese, and you know, to get back at the UK. You're like, I don't think so. You know, when the bills start coming, you know, the piper has to be paid or whatever the thing is, and they do come in Moldova, one of these countries down there. Begins with an M, next to Greece, and they took, what's that, Montenegro? That's right. They took tons of loans from China to build a road, a big giant road that doesn't really go anywhere. But they decided, for political reasons, they wanted to build this road. And now, you know, China's come back to them and said, well, you know, if you're not going to pay us, if you default on the loan, we're going to take the land off you.
Yep.
You're like, okay, you know. So we like to think there's always a bunch of useful idiots out there who will try and say, well, you know, they're so benign. These the Chinese, the Russians, or these big companies. I mean, you can say it to the Americans as well. You know, it's not everything has a price, and you know, you have to deal with that. But this guy Blythe as well, he's also known for this amazing comment that he's kind of like he blows hot and cold, right?
Oh,
so the
Brexit times 10. Brilliant.
So leaving union would be Brexit times 10, says Sturgeon advisor. And he says that if your argument is you need to do this because of Brexit, then Scotland separated from England is the biggest Brexit in history. The last time Scotland was fully economically independent was the word capitalism hadn't even been uttered. And he also said the thing about so I don't know if it's in this one actually, but it's about Denmark. You know, Denmark had 800 years to become Denmark, and that's why it's like Denmark, because they're all nationalists are always like, oh, well, why can't we be just like Denmark, happiest nation in the world, bacon, and they've got a bacon, you know. So, but Scotland isn't like that. We don't have that much bacon. We'd rather the Danes make the bacon and be happy for that.
Exactly.
I mean, really, and just do our own thing. We've got whiskey. What do we need? Whiskey and bacon. Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, getting back to the story, why are we actually talking about Mark Blythe? Right. So there's information that was obtained via Freedom of Information request, and what was it? It was correspondence between Mark Blythe and the Scottish government folks. And in the email that was coming, let's quote from it. So it's: since David McWilliams made me into the reluctant poster child of Scottish nationalism, I've been a bit stumped. And oh, look what we have here, folks. I've been trying to make a write-up, something on the subject, but keep struggling to find the positive case that I'd hoped for. Oh, well. Oh, well. I mean, we all knew there wasn't a case, but it's good that Mark is finally coming to that result.
It's kind of a strange one, though, isn't it? It's a bit like if they asked him. Usually, you ask people who are already committed to the cause, and then they're willing to bend the numbers and bend the facts, you know, and to say, right, I believe in Scotland should be independent. Therefore, I'm going to, you know, put all these revenues in this basket and all this here, and I'll ignore that and I'll do that. But he doesn't seem to be that case. He seems to be just like, he seems to be roped in, and then he's like, I don't really want to be here.
I think it's like, no, it's Brexit times 10, guys. There's no positive case. We should mortgage ourselves to the Chinese. This is economic policy from the SNP, guys. This is just truly mind-boggling. It's nightmarish. There is no end to insanity. Can we just recollect ourselves for a second? This guy advises the SNP economic vote.
And even he's saying that this
well,
doesn't
I mean,
work. Guys, I'm really
yeah,
sorry.
I mean, it's quite something. It really is something. But when you actually look at the quality of the actual economic advisors, like Richard Murphy, he's a Gers denier. He can't even work out percentages. I mean, it's just shocking, the level. And they'll just talk about him all the time. And if you read his blog, it's like, it's actually insanity. You don't have to be an economic expert to know the guy's a nutter, and at least some people you could kind of obfuscate things and stuff, but what they've got left really are a bunch of cranks. These people in some ways are no different from the people that are manning these barricades. They're instead of shouting Tory scum, they're making up stuff and making up lies to suit their case. And the rest of us are sitting here going, well, we don't do that, and we like the truth, and we like to have real facts and not this kind of stuff. And I think this guy Mark Blythe is kind of one of these people stuck in the middle of that a little bit.
Yeah. Indeed. Very good one, Niall.
It was a good one. Very good, Niall.
If he may as well be looking for Nessie guys, because there's no positive case for independence, not one. So he may as well be looking for unicorns.
And we also say it quite a lot. I mean, it's not just about money. We had a guy another one. He says, why don't they just let us go if we cost so much money? Well, then let go Liverpool, let go Cornwall, let go every part of the United Kingdom except for the southeast in London that doesn't make any money. Right. So what's it going to? What are you going to be left with? That's why I think federalism is not a great idea as well, because you end up with people in Liverpool saying, "Well, we're not getting enough money, and and those people over there are stealing money from us and all this type of stuff." That's not the way you should be thinking about a country. It's like and especially if you're a socialist, you should be saying like, "We're going to be sharing this." We had that thing actually, just what mentioned passing. There was a thing I just posted before we come on the show, and it was Irvin Welsh, and he's lauding the RMT guy, what's his name, Mike Lynch, who said that there's going to be, he thinks there should be a second referendum. It's like, these are supposed to be socialists. Why are they putting their hat in with divisive, greedy nationalists? Why? Right, that's not right. It really is. It's not right. We'll be back in a second with the highlight of the week, Zoomer of the week. Yay. Oh, fancy graphics. Well, don't we love you? All right, who's up first, actually? I don't know.
I think it's me.
It is David.
It is me. Right, okay. My nomination for Zoomer of the Week this week is LBC presenter Iain Dale.
Oh, God.
For those of you who missed the story, Iain Dale is a London-based former Conservative Westminster candidate who additionally hosts a politics radio show on LBC, which I think is the London Broadcasting Corporation. I assume it is. Anyway, this month Dale had appeared in Edinburgh, as a lot of southern-based journalists do at this time of year. And while up in the fair city, he was hosting interviews with some political figures as part of the Fringe. Among the people he interviewed was Nicola Sturgeon. Now, bearing in mind that Dale is a South of England Conservative, and as such, exactly the type of person Nicola Sturgeon and her followers resent and detest, he nonetheless spoke quite fondly of the First Minister, in as much as, after his interview, Dale tweeted that Sturgeon is one of the most impressive politicians I have interviewed. Praise indeed. Now, unsurprisingly to everyone, except seemingly Iain Dale himself, the reaction in Scotland to his tweet was one of absolute incredulity. So most of the comments went along the lines, how can you say Sturgeon's impressive? Did you not question her on her appalling record while First Minister? And Dale was actually quite taken aback at this. And rather than dealing with the substance of people's questions, he replied with tweets saying things like, "Oh, were you there? I bet you weren't even there, were you?" And it was like very petulant. And then he went even further down by saying, "Well, you're just British nationalists, and you're just as bad as Cybernet." So it's really bizarre stuff.
Yeah, I've got the thing here.
Great.
Right, here he goes. We hear a lot about the bile spewed out by Cybernat trolls, and I've experienced myself. What I hadn't realised is that the unionist side of the debate has its equivalents. They've been dubbed the Britnats or Brit-Unes. Like, right, okay, right.
Yeah. That's us, right?
Well, apparently it's not the majority of people who are against nationalism. We are extremists. Basically, he's painting the people who are against Nicola Sturgeon and who basically said to him that he had an insipid and foot rub of an interview, basically, instead of hammering her on the questions, right? Drug deaths. What are you doing about these drug deaths? You can't get a referendum because the Supreme Court is going to say no. These are not difficult questions. These are straightforward questions. And none of this was addressed in there. And that's just two areas, right? And it's just this idea that journalists, especially London-based journalists, who think Nicola Sturgeon is a great way of bashing the UK government, and they give her a platform. They don't, and they never look beyond the headline. Dale said that he gets eight different types of headlines out of that in multiple newspapers, but not one of them was Nicola Sturgeon under attack for something she hasn't been able to do. It was all stuff Nicola Sturgeon was saying against other parties.
Exactly. The main story that was put out into the press after his interview was, Liz Truss once asked Nicola Sturgeon, did you get into Vogue? How can I get into Vogue? Like anybody cares. That's what you came out of your interview with the First Minister with that strapline. My God. Anyway, but what even worse, guys, you may not know this, but Dale's touchiness, and he was being extremely touchy on this subject, culminated in a tweet in which he said, and I quote, "Oh wow, I imagine you tweeted that while sitting alone in your bedroom, WANKING over your keyboard." He actually typed that on Twitter and put it out and stood by it subsequently when questioned on it.
Well, I mean, he was under a lot of pressure from this. I wrote a long tweet thing about it. You can see it's there. Basically, the idea that insulting the majority of Scots who voted to remain in the UK, calling them nationalists, is just an affront. We're not nationalists. They are nationalists, and making a false moral equivalence between us and them is exactly what nationalists do. They call everyone else as against them nationalists, even though as if it's something bad as well. I mean,
they cloak their own extremism by calling everyone else extreme or ultra unionists.
But it got worse. Actually, as David said, it got worse today. This is what he says, Dale. The majority of MSPs support one and stood in a manifesto promising one. That, of course, would be a second referendum. That qualifies as a mandate. And he had the cheek to say in his article that he'd only been up, for 9 days. Oh no, not a cheek. He had a moment of clarity where he said, I've only been up there for 9 days. So he came up for 9 days, interviewed Nicola Sturgeon, didn't ask any hard questions, and now he's pushing the idea that Nicola Sturgeon should get a second referendum because they have a mandate for a reserved issue that she has no power on, and it's against the will of the majority of Scots who voted to remain in the UK. Now, it's like it's going down a rabbit hole instead of saying, actually learning. Read the Scotland Act, Iain. It doesn't. She cannot get a second referendum, and she shouldn't get a second referendum because she's not the one deciding. We're the ones to decide. We won the referendum, right? This is the thing that people seem to forget. We won it, and it was up to us to decide. We decide the length of the next one, not up to them.
Here. Indeed. But sadly, I'll just finish this off. It's not unusual. It's not unusual for London-based commentators to go weak at the knees whenever they encounter Sturgeon, because she's unlike some London-based political figures like Johnson, for example, in that she is passably articulate. She is well briefed by her spads, in fairness to her she is, and she's able to sidestep difficult or clever questions with a little bit of deflection. Not that Dale, of course, asked anything other than saying, drug deaths. Anyway, what about your shoes? I mean, ridiculous. But so when Dale says that Sturgeon is an impressive politician, what he means is she is a capable self-publicist who is also has the ability to stick to a prepared script. But that certainly doesn't make her an impressive politician, because her utterly dismal record as First Minister proves she's a wholly ineffective and highly unimpressive politician. So, Mr. Dale, if you're watching, and I hope you are, my message is no one in Scotland is remotely impressed by the floundering, failing, and soon-to-be replaced, God willing, First Minister. And if you, Mr. Dale, can't tell the difference between a plausible liar and an effective politician, can I suggest you don't bother visiting Scotland for a further 9 days? No, I don't want to sound like a nationalist here, but please, if this is all you've got to offer to the debate, coming up, listen to a lot of hogwash from the First Minister about Vogue magazine, and then saying, well, of course, you deserve a referendum. Please don't come back into the fringe. We can't take any more of this. Thank you very much. So that's why you're my nomination, for Zoomer of the Week.
Maybe we've misinterpreted it because it was a comedy act, David. At the Fringe. Maybe it's misinterpreted it. Iain, Dale and Nicola Sturgeon do comedy.
Well, it's just one of these things. If you're not challenging politicians, you're just giving them PR.
Absolutely right.
You know, so stop giving them foot rubs. Actually ask them real questions and stop using them for your own ends, because all you're doing is giving a platform to toxic, divisive nationalists. And one day you'll turn around and go, "Oh,
whoops,
yeah, that's not right."
Quite right.
Okay, moving on. Who is it? Well, I'll just go next because mine's a short anyway. My Zoomer of the Week is an actual Zoomer. It's this guy here who posted on Twitter the other day that he went for a walk here. Nothing better on a sunny day, walking around, winding things up, wearing the 45 shirt.
Why would that wind us up? It's just a reminder of the victory. It's like, come on, man.
I love this. It's just so nutty. It's like, okay, I'm going to wind you up by showing you a T-shirt where I've lost. I don't have that much to say about this, but I just think it's hilarious. It's just so crazy. He's always stomping around, going, "Oh yeah, I'm the best, the greatest loser," something like this.
It's more for about winding the opposite side up now. Notice that. That's what it gets back to the whole the hatred of the Tories is out trumps the actual Yes movement at this point. The Yes movement, there's no positivity at all, but they can hate as much on the Yuns and the Tories as they like.
I always wondered about this 45 thing as well, because they're a bit like, we're the 45 and all this. It's like, okay, so what? We're the 55. That's a bigger number.
Yes.
We don't shout about it. We don't need to shout about it. That's the thing, particularly. Anyway, I thought that was just, I think this guy's hilarious. And I wonder what other things he wanders around wearing, like who's in Germany, he'd be like, okay, we're wearing a Hitler thing and saying, yeah, this is going to really wind up the people who won. I don't know, whatever. Anyway, moving on.
Right,
David. Is it David?
No, it's me this time. It's me. David's done his smart. Right.
Memorable enough,
Right, so my nomination, guys, this week, it's Nicola Sturgeon, guys. The head of the snake. The head of the snake. Right. After the abuse of another BBC reporter, James Cook, Sturgeon summoned the cameras to condemn the abuse from our own supporters, nonetheless, who were simply echoing her own message. Interesting, isn't it? So Sturgeon can condemn the actions all she wants, but it's clear to everyone, you, me, Mark, David, the viewers, and anyone that's got a functioning brain or even a semi-functioning brain, that this is all her doing in the first place.
Yeah.
It's her doing, guys. Her over-the-top public hatred and branding of the Tories, are merchandising the Tory name for votes, guys, has resulted. It's manifested something deeply, deeply disturbing in her own supporters. And I don't think she'll be able to control them much longer. Moreover, it's not just the supporters, it's almost the entirety of Scotland. See if, just as a thought experiment, next time you're out, have a wee conversation with somebody you don't know, a stranger, and ask them about Tories. What do you think of the Tories? You'll get 99% or someone in Scotland, if you're in Scotland, you'll say, they'll be afraid to say anything positive about the Tories.
Mm-hmm.
You see where we are? It's the fear of saying positive things about the Tories.
Well, I mean, that's
negative stuff.
But it's a victory in a sense for them, isn't it? Then I mean, it's not about Tories, it's about Labour. I mean,
it's censorship by a different means.
Yeah,
David was
self-censorship. And it doesn't matter whether you say you're a Tory or Labour, you could quite get the same type of a programme. So, yeah, it's definitely Nicola is the head of the snake.
So, anyway, it's and there's a picture I sent you, Mark. If you could put the picture up, just jump into your DMs. It's of the Tory scum banner.
Oh, yeah.
Right, okay.
Right? So, it's clear to me, and I want the backdrop of the Tory banner while I'm saying this, that the Yes voters now harbour more hatred of the Tories than they do support for independence.
Right.
And the plain unadulterated truth is that anger and hatred fuels the yes cause at this point. I automatically see in 2014. I found it was more of a pro-Scotland vote, you think, in 2014, and now fast forward to 2022, it's now an anti-English vote. It's not a pro-Scotland vote.
I think that's
see
quite
where we are.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. Good
point there. Pro-Scotland in
Niall.
2014, and now it's anti-England. This is where we are. It's no profound making that
no, I think that's
jump.
Quite good.
And you guys asked me last week, what's Sturgeon's legacy going to be? I think we've found it, guys. It's this. It's the toxic environment and where we live. And it's rotten. It's pure rotten, guys.
Well, I like to say that, it's still nationalism. It's still ugly. It's still toxic. It's still greedy. It's still selfish. All these things, maybe even especially, but even when it's wearing a suit that comes from Vogue and Jimmy Choo's, so this is she's responsible. She cannot deny that her not healing the country is what happened. If you could imagine if Labour had been in after then
she is the very wedge dividing our country. She is the wedge.
But she still has many, many supporters who think she walks in water and so on. And we have to make them understand that what is actually happening in this country and how they're responsible for it. But I'm conscious of the time. So, David, you can choose. Why not?
Okay, very tempted to give it to Miss Sturgeon because I love giving the award to Miss Sturgeon. Also quite tempted by the 45 guy. And indeed, a really excellent suggestion from Emily Malbeck. The period dignity man, couldn't he have been one of them?
Oh, yes.
But the thing is, because he didn't actually nominate himself to be that job, he just took the job, so I wouldn't really blame him for
Who takes a job like that?
Well, true. But anyway, there can only be one winner today for his utter Twitter meltdown and his self-inflicted trashing of his own reputation as a serious journalist. Iain Dale is Zoomer of the Week for his toadying to Nicola Sturgeon.
Yes, I totally agree with that, 100%. 100%, totally agree with that. All right, okay, so we seem to have managed to get through it a little bit late today, but we will be back with another show next Wednesday, August 24th, at usual time of 7 p.m, if we can get all the technical issues sorted out.
Yes,
a lot of trouble with the sound before the show, which seems to disappear when the show is actually on. Everything's been good tonight.
And there's a lot of great comments coming in. I'm just giving a shout out to all the great viewers that we've got now putting the comments in. I love that a lot of them people watching on YouTube these days, which is good.
That's good.
The best quality on YouTube, and you can, of course, watch after the fact.
And a big shout out to Mary, who has been doing the comments.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Okay.
It's been a great night.
Good.
Thank you.
And I'm going to turn your microphone off, I think. Okay, I think that's a bit better. And thank you to donors for supporting the show. Without you, we can do it. If you can donate, please do so. Thank you, Lisa, there for your support. Thank you for everyone who's been watching. Thanks also to our friends at UK Union Voice and United Against Separation for helping us broadcast the show out on Facebook.
Yep, of course. Do Google The Majority Show and subscribe to our YouTube channel because you didn't want to be missing our shows, guys. You absolutely do not. And if you can make a small donation, please do so we can all collectively destroy the Pretendy Ref together and bask in the glory of it. Okay,
I'll leave you with the thought for the week, which is just nationalism is just deflection. That's what it is. It's always if someone else's fault and never them. And as long as they're allowed to get away with that, that's they will get away with it. Yep. So we have to pull them up whenever we can. All right, good night from me, and hopefully
good night from me as well.
And from me too. Thanks very much, everyone. Cheers, guys.
Bye-bye.
All right, good night.
Bye-bye.